The screams of Olivia Westfall echoed off the damp stone walls, fading into the darkness as the heavy oak door slammed shut. It was 1876 in Gold Hill, Nevada, and at 20 years old, Olivia had just become a prisoner in her own home. The silver rush had brought fortune to the Westfall family, but wealth had only made her stepfather more cruel and her mother more compliant. "You'll stay down here until you agree to marry Mr. Holloway." Her stepfather's voice boomed through the thick door. "He's offering good money for you, and by God, I intend to collect." Olivia pounded her fists against the door until her hands were raw. Thomas Holloway was 55 years old, a silver baron with 3 previous wives who'd all died under mysterious circumstances. She'd rather die herself than be sold to him. The cellar was cold and damp, with only a small window near the ceiling that let in thin shafts of dusty light. Her stepfather had cleared out most of the supplies, leaving just a thin mattress on the floor, a chamber pot, and a pitcher of water. This wasn't the first time she'd been locked down here, but never for something so serious as refusing a marriage proposal. 3 days, he had said. 3 days to come to your senses." Olivia slumped against the wall, her dark auburn hair falling around her shoulders. Her mother hadn't said a word during the whole ordeal, just stood there with downcast eyes. Since marrying Gregory Simmons 3 years after Olivia's father died, Eleanor Westfall had become a shadow of herself. It broke Olivia's heart. Gold Hill had boomed alongside Virginia City when the Comstock lode was discovered. The Westfall family had been early investors, and while they weren't as wealthy as the Hearsts or the Mackeys, they lived comfortably. Too comfortably, Olivia thought bitterly. Money had changed her family. Her real father would never have treated her this way. As night fell, the cellar grew colder. Olivia wrapped herself in the thin blanket left on the mattress, her mind racing. She needed to escape, but the cellar door was solid oak with iron hinges. The single window was too small for anything bigger than a cat to squeeze through. The next morning, light streamed through the small window, waking Olivia. Her body ached from sleeping on the hard mattress. She heard footsteps above, the house coming alive with morning activities. No one came to check on her by midday. Her stomach growled painfully. She'd had nothing since lunch the previous day. When the cellar door finally opened, it was her 12-year-old half-sister, Sophia, who appeared with a tray. "Olivia," she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I brought you some bread and soup. Mother doesn't know." Olivia took the tray gratefully. "Thank you, Sophia." "Is he still angry?" Sophia nodded, her blonde curls bouncing. "Mr. Holloway is coming for dinner tomorrow night. Father says you'll be there, whether you agree or not." A chill ran down Olivia's spine. "Sophie, listen to me. I need your help. Is there any way you can unlock this door tonight?" The young girl's eyes widened. "I can't, Olivia. Father would kill me." "Please, Sophie, I can't marry that man. You know the rumors about his wives." Sophia shifted uncomfortably. "I'll try to come back later," she promised before slipping back through the door, locking it behind her. Alone again, Olivia ate slowly, savoring each bite of the simple meal. Her mind turned to Quinn Dawson, the quiet cowboy who worked at the livery stable. They'd spoken only a few times, but there was something about his calm demeanor and gentle eyes that had stayed with her. If only she'd accepted his offer to take her riding last Sunday, she might be far from here by now. Quinn had come to Gold Hill just 6 months ago, a man of few words but strong character. Folks said he'd been a Texas Ranger before heading west. Whatever his past, he treated Olivia with a respect that few men in town showed to women. Not as property, not as delicate flowers, but as equals. Night fell again, and Olivia's hope dimmed with the light. She tried every possible way to escape. The door wouldn't budge, the window was immovable, and the stone walls were solid. She was trapped. Miles away, at the edge of town, Quinn Dawson sat cleaning his saddle in the small room above the livery stable he managed. At 32, he'd seen enough of life to recognize trouble brewing. He hadn't seen Miss Westfall in town for 2 days, which was unusual. She typically came to the general store on Tuesdays and to the small-town library on Wednesdays. "Something ain't right," he muttered to himself. The next morning, he casually asked Mrs. Peterson at the general store if she'd seen Miss Westfall. "Haven't seen her," the shopkeeper replied, arranging jars of preserved fruits. "But I heard that old Gregory Simmons finally found a buyer for her. Thomas Holloway's been sniffing around for a new wife since his last one died of that mysterious fever." She made quotation marks with her fingers. Quinn's jaw tightened. "Buyer? She's not a horse," Mrs. Peterson sighed. "In Gregory Simmons' world, women aren't much different from livestock. Poor Alina. First decent man in town dies and leaves her with a child, and she marries that snake." As Quinn left the store, his mind was made up. He'd heard stories about Holloway. The man had buried 3 wives already, each one younger than the last. His ranch at the edge of the county was isolated, perfect for a man who didn't want neighbors witnessing his business. That evening, Quinn watched the Westfall house from a distance. He saw Holloway's carriage arrive, the portly man in his expensive suit stepping out with a bouquet of flowers. The sight made Quinn's stomach turn. He waited until well after midnight. The house had gone dark hours ago, but he wanted to be certain everyone was asleep. Moving silently across the yard, Quinn approached the house from the back. He'd done enough reconnaissance to know that the cellar had an external entrance on the side of the house. The heavy padlock on the cellar doors was no match for his bolt cutters. Quinn winced at the metallic snap, but no lights came on in the house. Carefully, he pulled open the wooden doors and descended the stone steps. Inside the cellar, Olivia jolted awake at the sound of the external doors opening. Fear gripped her heart. Was it her stepfather coming to force her compliance? Or worse, had he allowed Holloway early access to his purchase? She grabbed the only weapon available, a broken piece of pottery from the soup bowl Sophia had brought, and pressed herself against the wall beside the interior door, ready to strike if necessary. The footsteps were too light to be her stepfather's. A soft knock came at the door. "Miss Westfall." A familiar voice whispered, "It's Quinn Dawson. Are you in there?" Relief flooded through her. "Mr. Dawson." "Yes, I'm here. The door is locked from your side." She heard the scrape of metal, then a grunt of effort. The lock broke with a crack that seemed deafening in the quiet night. The door swung open, and there stood Quinn, a dark silhouette against the faint moonlight streaming through the external cellar doors. "You're coming home," he said simply, extending his hand. Olivia hesitated. "Home? I am home, Mr. Dawson." "No, madam." His voice was gentle but firm. "This ain't a home, it's a prison. I've got horses ready. We need to leave before they wake." She took his hand, feeling calluses against her palm. "They'll come after us. My stepfather won't let go of Holloway's money easily. Let them try." There was steel in his voice that made her believe they might actually have a chance. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Both froze. "Quickly now," Quinn whispered, leading her up the stone steps and out into the cool night air. 2 horses waited at the edge of the property, already saddled. "I can't ride astride in this dress," Olivia whispered. Without a word, Quinn shrugged off his long duster coat and handed it to her. "Tear that skirt if you need to. We don't have time for propriety." Olivia nodded, ripping her dress up the sides to give her legs freedom to straddle the horse. She pulled Quinn's coat around her for modesty and mounted the mare with his help. They rode in silence through the sleeping town, keeping to the shadows. Only when they reached the outskirts did Quinn finally speak. "I've got a friend with a cabin in the hills. We can stay there while we figure out our next move." Olivia's heart raced with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "Why are you helping me, Mr. Dawson?" He glanced at her, his expression unreadable in the darkness. "Because no one deserves to be sold like cattle. Especially not to a man like Holloway." The cabin was small but solid, hidden in a grove of pine trees about 10 miles outside Gold Hill. As dawn broke, they approached the clearing. "It ain't much," Quinn said as they dismounted, "but Jack won't mind us using it. He's mining up in the Yukon these days." Olivia looked at the humble cabin with gratitude. "It's perfect." Inside was simple one room with a stone fireplace, a small table with 2 chairs, a cupboard with basic supplies, and a single bed in the corner. Quinn immediately set about building a fire. "I'll sleep outside," he said, nodding toward the bed. "You take that, Mr. Dawson." "Quinn," he corrected. "If we're going to be fugitives together, you might as well use my given name." A small smile touched her lips. "Quinn, I don't know how to thank you." He shook his head. "Don't thank me yet. Your stepfather won't give up easy, not with Holloway's money at stake. We need a plan." As the fire crackled to life, they sat at the small table and talked. Quinn had brought provisions, jerky, beans, coffee, and hardtack enough for a few days. Olivia told him everything about her situation, about her real father's death when she was 15, her mother's hasty remarriage, and how things had changed when Gregory Simmons took over their lives. "My father was a good man," she said softly. "He taught me to read, to think for myself. He wanted me to go to university back east." Quinn nodded, pouring her a cup of strong coffee. "And your mother, she just lets this happen?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "She's broken. After my father died, something inside her died too. When she married Gregory, I thought maybe she'd found happiness again, but he just consumed her." As morning turned to afternoon, Quinn explained his plan. They would rest for a day, then head north toward Carson City. From there, they could catch a train eastward. "I've got some savings," he said. "Enough to get us to Denver, maybe farther." "Us?" Olivia asked, surprised. "You're coming with me." He met her eyes steadily. "Unless you'd rather I didn't," she blushed, looking away. "No, I'd like that." That night, despite her protests, Quinn slept outside on a bedroll while Olivia took the cabin's only bed. She lay awake for hours, thinking about this quiet man who'd risked everything to help her. Why would he do such a thing? They barely knew each other. Yet here he was, sleeping under the stars to protect her. Morning came with a startling realization. She felt more at home in this tiny cabin with Quinn than she ever had in her stepfather's grand house in Gold Hill. When she stepped outside, she found him already awake, cooking breakfast over a small fire. "Hope you like flapjacks," he said with a hint of a smile. "I haven't had flapjacks since my father died," she admitted, sitting on a log beside the fire. They ate in comfortable silence, watching the sun climb over the eastern ridge. In the daylight, Olivia got her first good look at her rescuer. Quinn Dawson was tall and lean, with broad shoulders and strong hands. His face was weathered from years outdoors, with fine lines around his eyes that deepened when he smiled. His hair was dark brown with hints of copper in the sunlight, and his eyes were a clear, steady blue. "We should stay put today," Quinn said. "Your stepfather will have men searching the main roads. Better to travel tomorrow when they've widened their search area." Olivia nodded, then glanced down at her torn dress. "I wish I had other clothes." Quinn reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a bundle. "Got you these from the laundress in town yesterday. Told her they were for my sister." Unfolding the bundle, Olivia found a simple shirt, canvas trousers and a sturdy belt. Not fine ladies' clothes, but practical traveling gear. "Thank you," she said softly. "You thought of everything." He shrugged. "Been planning this since I heard about Holloway." "You have?" She was surprised. "Why would you go to such trouble for me?" Quinn was silent for a long moment, poking at the fire with a stick. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "My sister was married off to a man like Holloway when she was 16. He beat her regular. By the time I found her 3 years later, she was barely alive. She died in my arms." Olivia's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, Quinn, I'm so sorry." "I was away fighting in the war," he continued, his eyes on the flames. "Should have been there to protect her. I swore I'd never stand by again if I saw a woman in trouble like that." Impulsively, Olivia reached out and placed her hand over his. "You saved me. I'll never forget that." His eyes met hers, and something passed between them, an understanding, a connection deeper than words. That day passed quietly. Quinn taught Olivia how to build and maintain a fire, how to identify edible plants in the forest, and basic tracking skills. She was a quick learner, eager to absorb knowledge that might help them survive. "My father would have liked you," she said as they gathered kindling in the forest. "He valued practical skills, said books were important but knowing how to survive was essential." Quinn smiled. "Smart man." "What did he do?" "He was an engineer. Helped design the mining equipment they use in the silver mines. He came west during the first boom in '59. As evening approached, Quinn grew more serious. "We'll leave before dawn tomorrow. Try to get some rest tonight." But rest didn't come easily for either of them. Olivia lay in the cabin, listening to night sounds and worrying about what lay ahead. Would they really make it all the way to Denver? What would happen then? And what about Quinn? Was he giving up his life here just to help her? Outside, Quinn stared at the stars, thinking similar thoughts. He hadn't planned to leave Gold Hill so soon. He'd been saving money, hoping to buy the livery stable eventually. Now those plans were dust. He didn't regret it, though. Something about Olivia Westfall had called to him from the first moment he saw her browsing books in the general store, her intelligence and quiet dignity evident in every gesture. They departed before first light, riding northeast through dense forest to avoid the main trails. Quinn led the way, occasionally checking behind them for signs of pursuit. By midday, they reached a high ridge with a view of the valley below. "There," Quinn pointed. "That's the Carson River. We follow it east, then north to Carson City." As they continued their journey, Olivia found herself watching Quinn, the confident way he sat his horse, how his eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, the gentle way he spoke to his mount. He was nothing like the men she'd known in Gold Hill, with their loud boasts and rough manners. "How did you learn to ride so well?" she asked as they stopped to rest the horses. "Grew up on a ranch in Texas," he replied. "Was riding before I could walk, my ma used to say." "And you were really a Texas Ranger," he nodded. "For 7 years after the war." "Needed something to do, someplace to belong." "Why did you leave?" A shadow crossed his face. "Shot a man. He deserved it, was wanted for killing 3 women, but his brother was a state senator. Things got complicated. Decided it was time to move on." Olivia absorbed this information. Quinn Dawson was a man with principles, someone who stood up for what was right regardless of the consequences. It made his rescue of her make more sense. They reached Carson City 2 days later, having avoided any sign of pursuit. The town was larger than Gold Hill, busy with commerce and travelers. Quinn led them to a small hotel on the outskirts. "Wait here," he said, leaving Olivia with the horses while he went inside to secure rooms. When he returned, his expression was grim. "There are wanted posters. Your stepfather's claiming I kidnapped you." Olivia's heart sank. "What do we do?" Change of plans. We can't take the train, they'll be watching the stations. We'll have to continue on horseback at least for a while. That night, in the safety of the hotel, Olivia couldn't sleep. Her room was adjacent to Quinn's, with a connecting door that remained firmly closed. She paced, thinking about their situation. They were fugitives now. Her stepfather had made sure of that. And poor Quinn, he was risking imprisonment, maybe worse, all for her sake. A soft knock came at the connecting door. "Olivia, are you awake?" Quinn's voice was low. She opened the door to find him fully dressed, looking troubled. "What is it? We need to leave. Now." His voice was urgent. "The hotel clerk recognized you from the poster. I saw him talking to the sheriff in the lobby." They slipped out through the back stairs, retrieved their horses from the stable, and rode out of town under cover of darkness. Rain began to fall, a blessing that would hide their tracks but a misery to ride through. By dawn, they were soaked and exhausted, having ridden hard all night. Quinn found a cave in a hillside where they could rest and dry out. "I'm sorry," Olivia said as they huddled near a small fire. "You should leave me. Go back, tell them I forced you to help me." Quinn's face hardened. "That's not happening." "But your life, my life, is my own to risk," he said firmly. "I made my choice when I broke that cellar door." Their eyes held for a long moment. Olivia saw something in his gaze that made her breath catch, not just determination, but something warmer, something that made her cheeks flush despite the chill. "Why?" she whispered. He looked away, busying himself with tending the fire. "Get some rest. We've got a long ride ahead." But Olivia wasn't willing to let it go. She moved closer, placing her hand on his arm. "Quinn, please tell me. Why are you really doing this?" His jaw worked, tension visible in every line of his body. Finally, he met her eyes again. "Because from the moment I saw you in that general store, reading poetry when everyone else was buying pickaxes and whiskey, I knew you were different. Special." Her heart stuttered. "You noticed me that long ago?" A faint smile touched his lips. "Hard not to notice the most beautiful woman in Gold Hill." Olivia felt warmth spreading through her chest, chasing away the dampness and cold. Impulsively, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his cheek. "Thank you," she whispered. Quinn froze, clearly surprised by the gesture. Then, slowly, he turned his face toward hers. Their lips were inches apart. Olivia could feel her heart pounding, a new kind of exhilaration flooding her veins. The moment was broken by the distant sound of horses. Quinn was on his feet instantly, dousing the fire. "Stay here," he ordered, moving to the cave entrance with his rifle. Olivia held her breath, listening to the approaching riders. Had they been found so quickly? But the riders passed by, their voices fading into the distance. "Just travelers," Quinn said, returning to her side. "But we should move on soon." The moment between them had passed, but something had changed. As they continued their journey eastward, there was a new awareness between them, a tension that hadn't existed before. They traveled for days, avoiding towns and keeping to the wilderness. Quinn proved to be an excellent guide and teacher, showing Olivia how to set snares for rabbits, how to find water in seemingly dry country, how to read the weather from the clouds. One evening, as they made camp in a sheltered valley, Olivia asked the question that had been on her mind. "What happens when we reach Denver?" Quinn was silent for a long moment. "That depends on you," he finally said. "You could start a new life there. Denver's growing fast, opportunities for a smart woman. And you," she pressed. He shrugged. "I'll make sure you're settled then. I don't know. Maybe head up to Wyoming. Heard they need good horsemen on the ranches up there." The thought of him leaving made Olivia's chest tight. "What if I don't want you to go?" His eyes snapped to hers, searching. "What are you saying, Olivia?" She took a deep breath. "I'm saying that these past days, difficult as they've been, have also been the most alive I've ever felt. And a lot of that is because of you." Quinn moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Olivia," he said softly, "I'm not the kind of man your father would have wanted for you. I'm just a cowboy with a troubled past." "My father wanted me to be happy," she countered. "To find someone who respected me, who valued me for my mind as well as my heart." She reached out, touching his face. "Someone like you." This time when their lips met, there was no interruption. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a hunger that surprised them both. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I've wanted to do that since Carson City," Quinn admitted, his voice rough. Olivia smiled, feeling a newfound boldness. "I've wanted you to do that since the cave." They spent that night talking by the fire, sharing stories of their lives, their dreams. Quinn told her about his childhood in Texas, about the war, about his years as a ranger. Olivia spoke of her father's encouragement of her education, her love of literature, her secret hope to someday become a teacher. "You'd make a fine teacher," Quinn said. "You've got the patience for it and the smarts." "Maybe in Denver," she said thoughtfully, "if we make it there." "We will," he promised, taking her hand. Their journey continued eastward, each day bringing them closer to Denver and further from the threat of Gregory Simmons and Thomas Holloway. But the trail was not without dangers. Game became scarce as they crossed more arid terrain, and their supplies dwindled. One afternoon, as they crested a hill, Quinn suddenly raised his hand in warning. "Riders coming. 4 of them." They quickly retreated into a stand of trees, watching as the riders approached along the trail below. "Bounty hunters," Quinn muttered, recognizing the type. "Your stepfather must have put out a substantial reward." Olivia's hand tightened on his arm. "What do we do?" "Change course. We'll head southeast for a while, try to throw them off our trail." The detour cost them precious time and supplies. 3 days later, they were running dangerously low on food when they spotted smoke in the distance. "Might be a homestead," Quinn said. "Stay here. I'll check it out." Olivia watched anxiously as he rode toward the smoke. He'd been gone nearly an hour when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Relief flooded her until she realized there were multiple riders. It wasn't Quinn returning. She retreated deeper into the thicket where they'd been hiding, her heart pounding. 3 men on horseback came into view, rough-looking characters with the unmistakable bearing of men who hunted other men for a living. "Tracks lead this way," one said, pointing. "The girl's worth more than the man," another replied. "Simmons wants her back unmarked. The cowboy we can kill." Olivia bit back a gasp. They were going to kill Quinn if they found him. She had to warn him somehow. The men dismounted, examining the ground. "They split up here. One horse went that way toward the smoke. The other's been here a while." The tracker pointed toward Olivia's hiding place. She looked around desperately for an escape route, but she was surrounded. If she ran, they'd see her immediately. If she stayed, they'd find her within minutes. A gunshot rang out in the distance, followed by another. The men's heads snapped up. That came from the settlement. Dawson must have run into trouble. 2 of the men remounted quickly, riding toward the sound. The third, the tracker, continued searching the area. "Come out, girl," he called. "We know you're here." Olivia remained frozen, barely breathing. The man drew closer, his hand on his pistol. Suddenly, hoofbeats thundered toward them. The tracker turned, raising his rifle, but too late. Quinn's horse burst from the trees, and before the man could fire, Quinn's lariat looped around him, yanking him off his feet. "Olivia, run!" Quinn shouted, leaping from his horse to subdue the struggling bounty hunter. She didn't hesitate, running to her horse and mounting quickly. Quinn joined her moments later, the tracker left bound but alive behind them. "The other 2?" she asked as they galloped away. "Dealt with," he said grimly. "They won't be following us, did you?" "Kill them," he shook his head. Shot their horses. They'll be on foot for a while. They rode hard until nightfall, making camp in a rocky ravine that offered protection from both the elements and searching eyes. I found a homestead back there, Quinn explained as they huddled together for warmth. Swedish family, good folks. They gave me supplies. He produced bread, cheese, and dried meat from his saddlebag. Said there's a town about 2 days' ride from here. We can rest there, maybe buy fresh horses. Olivia leaned against him, exhausted but grateful. Thank you, again. He kissed the top of her head. Stop thanking me. We're in this together now. That night they slept close, sharing warmth and comfort. Olivia felt safe in Quinn's arms despite the danger that pursued them. In the morning, they continued their journey, now angling northeast again toward Denver. The town Quinn had mentioned turned out to be little more than a trading post with a saloon and a few houses, but it had a telegraph office. While Olivia waited with the horses, Quinn sent a message to an old ranger friend in Denver asking for help. James will meet us outside the city, he explained as they rode on. He can tell us if there are wanted posters up for us there. And if there are? Olivia asked. Quinn's expression was determined. Then we keep moving. Canada, maybe, or California. The thought of going so far was daunting, but Olivia realized she didn't care where they went as long as they were together. This journey had changed her in ways she was only beginning to understand. The pampered daughter of a prosperous family was gone, replaced by a woman who could ride all day, sleep on hard ground, and face danger without faltering. I love you, she said suddenly, the words spilling out before she could reconsider. Quinn reined his horse to a stop, turning to look at her with surprise. What did you say? Olivia met his gaze steadily. I love you, Quinn Dawson. I don't care if we have to run for the rest of our lives. I want to be with you. He was silent for so long that she began to worry she'd misread everything between them. Then he dismounted, came to her horse, and helped her down to stand before him. Olivia Westfall, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I've loved you since the day you argued with old man Peterson about whether Whitman was a greater poet than Longfellow. She laughed through sudden tears. You remember that? I remember everything about you. His hands framed her face. I never thought a woman like you could love a man like me. A woman like me needs a man exactly like you, she whispered before his lips claimed hers. They reached the outskirts of Denver a week later, where Quinn's friend James was waiting as promised. A former ranger turned businessman, James Forster owned a large cattle operation outside the city. You two have stirred up quite a hornet's nest, he said after greeting them. There are indeed wanted posters, but they're only in Nevada so far. Seems your stepfather's influence doesn't extend this far east. Relief washed over them. Denver could be safe after all. James took them to his ranch, where they were given proper rooms, baths, and new clothes. For the first time in weeks, Olivia slept in a real bed, though she found she missed Quinn's presence beside her. The next morning she found him on the porch, looking out over the rolling grasslands toward the distant mountains. It's beautiful here, she said, joining him. He nodded. James offered me a job, foreman on his north pasture. Excitement bloomed in her chest. You'd take it, if you wanted to stay, he said, turning to face her. Denver's got schools that might hire a teacher with your education. I'd need training first, she said thoughtfully. But yes, I'd like to stay. Quinn took her hands in his. Olivia, I need to ask you something important, but I want you to answer honestly. If you'd rather wait or if your answer is no, I'll understand. Her heart began to race. Ask me. He drew a deep breath. Will you marry me? Not today, not tomorrow, but when you're ready. When you've had time to be sure. Tears sprang to her eyes. I'm already sure, Quinn Dawson. Yes, I'll marry you. Today, tomorrow, whenever you want. His face broke into a smile that transformed him, erasing the worry lines and making him look younger, carefree. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet in an exuberant embrace. "I don't have a ring," he admitted, "or much money. But I promise you this: I will spend every day of my life making you happy." "I don't need a ring," she said. "I just need you." They were married 2 weeks later in James Forster's home, with a handful of guests and a justice of the peace who asked no questions about the bride's family. Olivia wore a simple blue dress that matched Quinn's eyes. He wore the first suit he'd owned since his ranger days. Their wedding night was spent in a small cabin on James's property, which he'd given them as a wedding gift. Under the stars of Colorado, they discovered each other fully at last, their love transcending the physical to touch something deeper, more eternal. "I never thought I could be this happy," Olivia whispered later, curled against her husband's side. Quinn's fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "This is just the beginning, love, just the beginning." Life on the ranch suited them both. Quinn thrived as foreman, respected by the men for his fairness and skill with horses. Olivia studied to become a teacher, eventually securing a position at the growing town schoolhouse. 6 months after their arrival in Denver, a letter came addressed to Mrs. Olivia Dawson. It was from her half-sister, Sophia. "Mother has left Gregory," she wrote. "After you escaped, he became unbearable. The final straw was when he struck me for defending you. Mother finally found her courage. We are living with Aunt Martha in San Francisco now. Mother asks for your forgiveness." Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she read the letter to Quinn. "They're safe," she whispered, and Mother found her strength at last. Quinn held her close. "Would you like to visit them? San Francisco isn't so far," she nodded against his chest. "Someday, when we're ready." A year passed, then 2. Gregory Simmons died suddenly of a heart attack, leaving behind substantial gambling debts that consumed most of the family fortune. Thomas Holloway married a banker's daughter from Sacramento, who mysteriously disappeared after 6 months. This time, however, the authorities investigated and Holloway was arrested for murder. Justice, long delayed, was finally served. With Gregory dead and Holloway imprisoned, the danger was gone. Olivia and Quinn were free to build their life without looking over their shoulders. On their 3rd anniversary, Quinn surprised Olivia with a deed to a small ranch of their own just outside Denver. "How?" she gasped, looking at the papers. "Been saving," he said with a smile. "And James helped with a loan. It's not much land, but the house is solid. Room to grow." She threw her arms around him. "It's perfect." They moved to their new home the following month. Olivia continued teaching while Quinn built up their small herd of cattle and horses. Their nearest neighbors were a mile away, but they weren't lonely. They had each other. That winter, Olivia discovered she was expecting their first child. Quinn's reaction was everything she'd hoped for: equal parts joy, awe, and tender concern for her well-being. "A baby," he whispered, his hand gentle on her still flat stomach. "Our baby." In the spring, Elena and Sophia came to visit from San Francisco. The reunion was tearful but healing. Elena was a changed woman, still quiet, but with a newfound strength in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Olivia," she said, holding her daughter's hands. "I failed you." "You found your way back," Olivia replied. "That's what matters now." When their son was born in the summer of 1880, they named him Joseph, after Olivia's father. He had Quinn's blue eyes and Olivia's auburn hair, a perfect blend of them both. Quinn took to fatherhood with natural ease, as comfortable cradling his son as he was breaking a wild Mustang. 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter, Elena Sophia, called Ellie for short. Their family was complete, or so they thought, until twins arrived 3 years after that. 2 boys they named James and Thomas, after Quinn's father and brother. Life wasn't always easy. There were droughts that threatened the cattle, winters so harsh they feared for their livestock, and the normal struggles of raising 4 active children. But through it all, their love remained steadfast, growing deeper with each passing year. On their 20th anniversary, as they sat on the porch of their expanded ranch house watching their children play with the horses in the corral, Quinn took Olivia's hand. "You ever regret it?" he asked. "Running away with me all those years ago?" She looked at him, at the silver now threading through his dark hair, at the laugh lines deepening around his eyes, and felt her heart swell with the same love she'd declared on that dusty trail to Denver. "Never," she said firmly. "Not for a single moment." He smiled, bringing her hand to his lips. "Remember what I said when I broke down that cellar door," Olivia laughed. "You're coming home," she quoted. "I didn't know then how true those words would be," he said softly. "You are my home, Olivia. You always will be." As the sun set over their land, casting golden light across the fields where their cattle grazed and their children played, Olivia leaned against her husband's shoulder, content in the knowledge that home wasn't the place they'd built, but the love they'd found along the way. From a prison in her family's cellar to the freedom of the Colorado plains, Olivia Westfall Dawson had found not just escape, but a life more rich and full than she'd ever imagined possible. And it had all begun with a broken door and 5 simple words from a quiet cowboy who'd become her heart's true home.